Hamlet says, I'm going to pretend to be crazy. Pay no attention to me. I'm going to be a little manic, a little antic, a little irrational for a while there. And then you see him at a number of different moments where, yeah, he is just where he's talking to people and he's not really paying attention to them, but he is he's dancing all over the place, and he seems like he's a little out of his mind. He doesn't really make sense, you know. There's the whole thing where he talks to Polonius and seems to make fun of him, say, "You are a fishmonger," and what does that mean? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Now, if he is using that and he's just pretending, well, okay, he might be saying, well, all right, how would a crazy person act? I'm going to act that way. But if he is really good at it, you start to wonder, well, maybe he's a little too good at it. But the process of delving into that, I would say, is in fact interesting, of Hamlet delving into so deep into the role. He really invests himself in appearing crazy from time to time, even while he seems to be saying, but it's all an act. Now, on the one hand, of course it's all an act, because the person on stage playing Hamlet is an actor and he is just performing. But you have to go along with it. Now, the question is, does that make the audience a little bit crazy too? Because if you're sitting there going along and saying, well, yeah, this is all fine, when it is in fact crazy, and the performance itself seems crazy, are you watching it, believing it, and going along with it and saying, well, okay, yeah, this insanity is fine? Is that logical? Is that coherent? Is that sane? Shakespeare is playing with this in a very delicate and uncertain way. But the insanity is a kind of device, because in Shakespeare's whole body of work, there is this continual fascination with the theater itself, with the idea of going to the theater and it being a little bit dreamlike, a little bit of a fantasy world. And that fantasy world is another way of saying insanity. Because everybody else in the play of Hamlet, all the other characters, are looking around, and they just keep, looking at Hamlet like, well, you're just lost. You are mentally unmoored. You're not really paying attention to reality. That's crazy. But they're just, in their own way, always too limited. What is crazy? Hamlet is just really, really smart. He is very often the smartest guy in the room, the smartest guy in every room he's in. And most of the craziness that he demonstrates is his ability to out-talk and out-think everybody on the spot. He is very good with repartee. And people can't quite keep up with him because he's all over the place, and oh, well, he's crazy. And they're trying to objectify him. They're trying to define him in very scientific limits, very strict definitions of, well, okay, we're normal because we're rational, because we think very simply. He is extraordinary. And so he's crazy. But he's only really extraordinary in that mental way. He is very human, very recognizable. The only thing really extraordinary in him is his mental capacity, his ability to think. He is smarter than everyone. And that seems so much in contrast with everybody else around him, who are all in their own ways very logical. Um, they have a hard time imagining someone so at such a level of mental sophistication, intellectual depth, because Shakespeare makes Hamlet infinite. And that infinity, that capacity, becomes almost impossible to live with. He is an aberration in that castle. He is a complication for everybody else. The castle seems to be running pretty smoothly, but he is this problem within it. So it becomes a question of, well, in order to be brilliant, in order to be a genius, you are setting yourself up for failure. And that failure is defined then as crazy. He is crazy because he doesn't fit in, because he is too infinite. And it's a problem with the play that is very hard to isolate. You cannot really come to a resolution about it. But if you just start thinking about it, you sort of go into your own little mental capacity, and then you're really right there with him, because you're reflecting upon these very fundamental issues, these very deep questions that he invites and that we are brought along into. And then we are right with him in that we are sort of isolated from all of the normal thinking people around us who just don't get lost.